Entering the Mayo experience.
That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC on ESPN +1. That's not going to stick around very much longer. I know everyone's super excited. New platform, new everything like that. And I'm super excited. New year, new beard. Joining my co-host here, Cody Saftic, also in the beard front. You still have a lot more.
New year, same
yours is
beard.
super thick. Yours is super thick. Like, I need some pointers. I've never really had a beard.
No, actually, I shaved right before the holidays, and this is it growing back. Yeah, but I left a little bit of mustache. Another mustache a little longer. No, it's all part of the plan. Anyways, got no tips for you. Some people use oil. I don't use oil. Some people like to use men grooming tactics. I do not.
Yeah.
I save money by not having to buy razors, although I don't really care about the commercial. And the razor I do have, Butterbean sold it to me. Little known fact, he makes razors now.
Oh, yeah?
Butterbean, the Butterbean. And other little known fact, we have the same birthday, August 3rd.
Very nice. I have found that my lips get really chapped. It's all that extra hair.
Just because
drawing
it's
moisture from
the
everything.
winter time. It's the winter and it's dry out, and that's why you're getting chappy.
What do you think of all this? Heading over to ESPN, new everything, new packages, I kind of equate this to like at the end of the last little run, we had some really rough cards, some like not so good cards, and that was kind of like the end of a relationship. You know, like you're farting in front of the girl. You've gotten too comfortable. That's kind of what I equate what was happening with UFC on Fox for the last year or so. You know that it's kind of heading towards a certain direction, but you stick with it because you have to, and then eventually find somebody new. Now that they found ESPN, I think we're going to be in for some good cards to start the year because it's a new relationship. Now they're on their best behavior. There's going to be pretty stacked cards, I think. They're going to probably incentivize some fighters to kind of take some fights a little bit quicker to fill these cards up, make their new partner happy. So I'm excited to get into 2019 with all the fights that we're going to have on ESPN. And it's a loaded, like we've been off the first 3 weeks of the year. We are on pretty full flight ahead for like the next 6 months, really.
Yeah, I'm excited either way. It doesn't really bother me. But no, I honestly think the first few ESPN cards will be loaded. I think this card's loaded. I think the fact that Greg Hardy is the co-main event is not a testament to the card being loaded talent-wise, but a testament that they're willing to put a big-name guy on there. They're willing to spend some money. They're willing to appease ESPN early. But the fact of the matter is that there's just so many cards that you have a roster of 500 fighters. Some of the fighters people are not going to know, and they're going to fill the majority of these in-between cards. So am I excited that there's a pile of cards coming up? Absolutely. Am I excited that there's on ESPN? No. Because for the hardcores, nothing changes. You'll go wherever it is. If it's on Fox, if it's on Spike, if it's on ESPN, if it's on whatever, you'll follow it. But it's the casual fan at home that's not going to know where it's playing. That's not going to know what's going on. That it might affect them. So for me, I don't care. It doesn't really bother me. But I could see how that is, in hindsight, that's a big thing, moving from Fox to ESPN. As far as the number goes and as far as the growth of the sport goes, huge stuff. But as far as us breaking down this fight, no fucking big deal. So
well, yeah, we're Canadians. Like, it really doesn't matter because nothing's changing for us from our perspective. Like it's going to be
easier
on the same,
for us. It's on TSN 5.
Yeah, it's going to be on the same channels, the same platforms that we've been accustomed to. So like none of the ESPN Plus and subscribing to that stuff really affects us. So at the end of the day,
let's jump into it.
You know, it's good to be Canadian. Before we get into that, we've got 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. I don't even know. Can't even keep track at this point. Over the holidays, we didn't really... I don't think we did one for the last card, but it was like the card before that. It was just like going into the holidays. We didn't want to get them to have to send money to people, but JLess456, I think that's how it was written. Mayo wrote that down for me. You won the last one. You probably got your money like 2-3 weeks ago.
Christmas,
so you are
Christmas
good.
Came early for him, but it was in fact his DK box.
So this time, for this episode, make sure you give the episode a like. Leave your DK handle and tell us if you think that TJ Dillashaw's weight cut is going to cause an issue. We have a lot of you know, a lot of weight cut experts that have reemerged. We were on this exact show talking about Max Holloway, and I don't think that Max Holloway has CTE issues, and there was a bunch of people out there. I'm not saying it's as bad this time around, but there's a lot of people who are just like, he looks like he's gonna die. Just like, well, he was already a pretty lean guy, and he's seemingly, from what I look at, I see that like looks like he's been doing it right. It's like he was going to lean out. He was going to get leaned out in the face. Like, this is all right, but he seems like he's doing it scientifically. Like, I've seen interviews with him. He doesn't seem like he's in bad shape. So if I were going to do it, I would go, you know, at DK handle Biff8888. I would give the episode a like, and I would say, no, it's a bunch of bullshit.
It's a bunch of bullshit. Well, I'd like to see the comments people leave you. But yeah, leave that also. You can get some DK bucks. Do I think the weight cut's going to affect him? Nah, I don't know. Weight cuts are always going to affect you somehow. You know, you're dropping a lot of weight, but is it going to affect you on the biggest performance of your life on that night? It's hard to tell. I think later on we're going to talk about a guy like Yancy Medeiros. Yancy Medeiros is a guy that's fought at 205. He's fought 185 pounds for Strikeforce. Comes to the UFC. He goes all the way down to 55, and it starts to kill him. And now the guy goes up to 170, and he starts to feel himself. He fills out. He starts to hit a rhythm. He loses his last fight to Donald Cerrone, and the guy decides to drop down back to 155 for this fight. So a lot of the speculation there is going to be the same thing. Like, he had trouble making it before. How's it going to affect him? That's stuff that you're overthinking it. You just got to look at the actual fight itself. Because at the end of the day, Yancy Medeiros is feeling great right now. And Yancy Medeiros, as far as everybody that's spoken to him fight week, just like you're mentioning, he's in great spirits. He's got lots of energy. The weight cut went well. TJ, same thing. Maybe he looks like shit. According to some people, he looks like shit. According to some people, he looks great. I think a lot of people wish they had abs, 25 abs like TJ Dillashaw does. But at the end of the day, you just got to look this for what it is, and it's a matchup between a fantastic wrestler, Henry Cejudo, guy that's worked a lot on his striking, versus TJ Dillashaw, guy that's probably the best striker in his division, let alone now that he's a 25er in both divisions. And I think he pieces him up over the course of 5. I don't know he stops him late. I think it goes 5. I think TJ Dillashaw has his way. Maybe drops around somewhere in the mix, but probably wins a 49, 46. Is what I'm thinking. And I think he coasts here. 210. Yeah, that's the price I think I'd expect out of it. You know, if I really thought it was a bad weight cut, I'd be hesitant on the 210. But because I'm leaning towards, I think he'll be okay, I don't mind paying that price.
Yeah, I'm more or less with you here. Obviously, this is the type of fight that seeing him on the scales may be beneficial. He may not make weight. Like, there's a lot of things. Henry Cejudo may not make weight. Like, this is...
No. Henry Cejudo will make weight, and he's in tremendous
He looked
shape.
like... I've seen that picture.
He's gonna give
Don't get me
TJ
wrong, but this guy has missed weight before, and he looks like he put on a lot of muscle. I don't know if it's going to be very easy for him to make weight.
It's funny you say that, because as soon as they decide to, like, close down this flyweight division, I think the talk was Cejudo going up to 35 and fighting Dillashaw at 35. So the fact that they're even keeping around this whole 125 idea is strange to me. And putting a top contender like Joseph Benavidez on the card as well. Like, if he beats Dustin Ortiz, then you got to think that he lines up with... I don't know. I just think there's a lot of variables here for the flyweight division, and yet there's apparently no more flyweight division. So if you're Henry Cejudo and they're closing this division, maybe you are thinking about going 135. Maybe you are packing it on. And who cuts weight worse than Henry Cejudo? Nobody. Despite being an Olympic wrestler, the guy is... Listen... He's made it recently, many of times. He's professional now. I'm just saying there was a time where it used to fuck him up. And now that he's 30 years old, who knows if that's going to be an issue again. I'm mainly looking at the fact here that I don't think Henry Cejudo's got the stopping power to knock out TJ Dillashaw within the first 3 rounds. And I really feel like that's the way to probably beat TJ Dillashaw's day. You got to get his respect early. You got to hurt this guy. Garbrandt, the only little bit of success he had in either of the 2 fights is that, yeah, maybe he was able to stun him in the first round. But outside of that, there's nothing. And that's what you need against TJ Dillashaw, because he's just going to keep putting the pace on you. I thought this was very interesting. If you look at, let's say, fight metrics for the fight, TJ Dillashaw, his last number of fights, Cody Garbrandt, both of them, he knocks him out within 1 round the second time and 2 rounds the first time around. So those fights, he's not landing a whole lot of significant strikes because he's having his way and he finishes them. Prior to that, his fight with John Lineker, you know, that fight does go a little bit.
He was able
later.
to land the takedowns. He was able to secure them. Like, the last 3 fights, he scored over 100 points.
But that fight's only 3 rounds, and his fight with Rafael Assunção was only 3 rounds. So let's look at the times that he goes beyond 3 rounds, because this is a 5-round scheduled fight, and we believe that it's probably going to go 5 rounds, because if Cejudo doesn't finish him early, doesn't have that ability, I don't think, then it's probably going to get drawn out. The times that he goes beyond 3 rounds, fights Dominic Cruz, lands 109 strikes. Renan Barão, 117. Joe Soto, 151. Renan Barão the first time, 140. Even Mike Easton, which was a 3-round fight, 117. Whereas the best that Henry Cejudo can muster up in a 5-round affair is 60, 70 significant strikes. So it should be 2-1. He should just, volume will be there. Henry Cejudo beat Demetrius Johnson, in my opinion. I know it was a closely contested affair. He definitely lost some rounds. And there's some people that don't think he won that fight. I believe he won that fight, but he actually got outstruck 81-51, I believe, throughout the course of the fight. So he wasn't landing the significant strikes, but he landed a couple timely takedowns that helped him win some rounds. And, he did what he had to do. But against TJ Dillashaw, who's a far more superior striker than Demetrius Johnson and is a higher output guy who's just as good of a wrestler, now you're going to have issues. And he's a bigger man. And if you do take him down, it'll be harder to hold him down. Like, now you got a bunch of variables. So I think TJ Dillashaw should be comfortable here. I think, again, if he does give up a couple takedowns, he just got to get back up and then get right back on his bicycle and get back to striking this guy. You're a little bit bigger. You're a little bit longer. Use that.
Yep, and just piling onto that point one last time, when he lost to Dominic Cruz in a 5-round striking affair,
I thought he won.
But that's besides the point. He scored 109 points. In a loss.
In a
5-round loss. So it's just like if this just stays on the feet, Henry Cejudo is probably going to try to take him down. He's going to try to just hold him there, and I just don't know if he can do it. Maybe the weight cut. There's a possibility that the weight cut hurts TJ. He doesn't have the same type of gas tank. He doesn't get better and better and better as the rounds go on. But this is one of those things that's just, we've never really seen him have any sort of cardio issues. So why would we start now? I know that there is you're introducing a new little thing that would be a problem for him, but
you know what?
It's hard for me to see Cejudo being able to utilize. But hey, I was sitting there saying that he wasn't going to be able to do that to Demetrius Johnson either. And he did that.
I don't know. Well, we sat here and we mentioned the fact that Demetrius Johnson had been champion for so long and had nobody fight him to a high level for so long and had already smoked Henry Cejudo that this is the time of the guy's life. 2 kids, a successful Twitch stream, likes to play video games, hasn't suffered a loss in so long that eventually you're gonna get defeated just because you're not at that pinnacle level anymore. Whereas TJ Dillashaw is at that pinnacle level. He's out there. Not saying Demetrius Johnson isn't one of the GOATs anymore. I just mean there's other things in this guy's life. Whereas Dillashaw, yes, has a kid and yes, is married, but this guy's life is the game. And one of my New Year's resolutions is overthinking the little things, like take off the tinfoil hat, throw the X Factor out of the window.
You want to overthink the little things or you don't want to overthink the little things?
I want to stop overthinking those little things. And a little thing here would be the weight cut for TJ Dillashaw. Because in the same breath that you could think about, geez, maybe this weight cut is going to affect him, think about the fact that Henry Cejudo's last fight with Demetrius Johnson, in the first round, the guy rolls his ankle because of the low kick, right? And that fight could have been stopped in the first round based on that. TJ Dillashaw is going to attack that low leg kick. He's going to attack that low leg kick all night. And that's going to affect Henry Cejudo, his ability to shoot takedowns, his ability to close the distance to get into the clinch, his ability to, maneuver around the outside of the cage. And those are all, that's just based on one technique from one time he rolled his ankle in a fight. Like, that's just overthinking things. So I'm just getting to the basics. And the basics here is TJ Dillashaw outpoints this guy 2-1 on the volume strikes. $8,900, sign me up. 210, I'm going to play that as well. No disrespect to Henry Cejudo.
No, he's great, but
there's scenarios that exist in this world that he does win this fight.
For sure.
But I think more cases than not, TJ Dillashaw.
We're on the same page there. We move, and I think we're going to be on the same page in this next fight. We have Greg Hardy taking on Alan Crowder. Greg Hardy, 9,500 on DraftKings, minus 550 favorite. Crowder is 6,700 and plus 425. Crowder won on the Dana White's Contender Series, but it was like his opponent just got super gassed and he was able to
he was gassed after 3 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what he's gonna have to try to do here. And then after that, he took on Justin Willis, and Justin Willis told him what he was talking about. If you get it, what you're talking about, Willis.
Took him 2.5 minutes to tell him all about it.
Tell him all about it. There's a reason why Greg Hardy, we're not here to be the moral police on whether he should or should not be on the card, whether people should deserve second chances, blah, 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 blah. Go tune in to some more mainstream media stuff if you want to hear that. We're here to break down the fights, and Greg Hardy is one hell of an athlete in a massive frame. He's got speed, he's got power. The guy's an all-pro defensive lineman. Like, the guy's got the goods from that perspective. He seems to be taking his MMA career very, very seriously, but he's 3-0. And he's finished all these guys super early. So what happens if he gets a little bit deeper? I don't think Alan Crowder is the guy. Like, we're going to cross this road eventually, but Alan Crowder is giving up so much athleticism, so much speed. The only thing he's got on him is experience. And I think Greg Hardy flattened him. 9,500 on DraftKings, though. The one issue that I have with that is he may just absolutely just murk him in the first like 25 seconds, 30 seconds, that type of thing. Comes out of guns a-blazing because that's what Greg Hardy does. And we haven't really seen what happens when somebody's able to eat all of that, absorb it, and then what, I assume he's going to run out of gas. In some of his interviews and stuff after his fights, like minutes after his fights, he seems pretty gassed. He's breathing heavy. So, like, this is definitely an issue for him moving forward. He's going to get through here. But at $9,500, you would almost hope that he would get like 2 knockdowns to pay off that price, because we're going to have other guys like GILLESPIE and SANDHAGEN down this card that are also up in that price tier. And those guys have a little bit more sustainable type of numbers, I think. Like, I could see Greg Hardy scoring like 105 points, which is good, which is great, but it's may not be good enough to really land you in the big contests. So what's your take on this fight?
I would take the play at 9,500. The only thing is I think he'll be super heavy owned, and for that reason, I could see
you guys are pretty.
Yeah, but
pretty
Greg Hardy is in a tailor-made matchup for himself
sure.
here, and that he's only 3-0. And Dana White clearly wants to take this guy along slowly. There's certain guys that they got the goods and they'll get tossed into the wolves right away. Well, there's other guys on this card that we're going to talk about. Guys like Alexander Hernandez. You can throw this guy in on his UFC debut against MEDEIROS, and now a couple fights in, he's taking it on a guy like Donald Cerrone and is a sizable favorite over him. Greg Hardy is not that guy, right? He's still a work in progress, so you got to bring along this guy slowly. They know what they're doing. They signed him to a developmental contract and had him fighting in smaller shows against, again, tailor-made opponents. Now he's got to come to the UFC. We got to give him someone that's on the UFC roster, let's say. Who's the worst guy that we could conceivably come up with right now? Alan Crowder's going to be in that mix because Alan Crowder doesn't have any variables to him. Whereas a guy like Cyril Asker, who's not very good, or a guy like... You're not bringing in a Chinese import. Let's just stop talking about that right now. But guys, right. But a guy like Cyril Asker, it's like, oh, geez, he's a brown belt in judo. He's a BJJ purple belt. Probably starches him in the first minute, but there's some variables there. Rashad Coulter. That guy's a pro boxer, actually. Got a decent little jab to him. Got some power. He sets up the 1-2. He's only dangerous for 5 minutes, but Hardy's only dangerous for 5 minutes. Don't give him Rashad Coulter. You give him Alan Crowder. Alan Crowder's, he's like almost Chase Sherman without the speed or the athleticism. Like, he's way slower. He's very still. I heard people talking about his toughness. He's been stopped all 3 times in his pro losses and got TKO'd as an amateur as well. So this is somebody that's been hit hard in his career, and he's typically faltered. You're not going out and getting somebody from a top gym who's fought guys better than Greg Hardy. You're getting a guy that's from like North Carolina that, according to all of his social media, really is in training at a super high level. His wife just gave birth to a kid. That's all shit that I know I just talked about, like, stop thinking about the little things too much. But like, he's just an average Joe that's taking a payday here to come get beat up. They're making Greg Hardy the co-main event of their first ESPN card. They want him to roll. They want him to look star. They want him to look good. And quite frankly, that's what he's going to do. And like you said, the only thing that Crowder has is the experience. And I agree with you. But in some ways, I'm going to disagree with you, because this is an interesting fact here with Greg Hardy, is that, first of all, if you're Alan Crowder and you're training at North Carolina and you're not a fantastic athlete, you're going to develop slower. Whereas Greg Hardy at American Top Team with the kind of think about the experience that he's had just in his football career because of the strength and conditioning and just like the discipline and the nutrition and all those things. He's going to carry that experience. Now we're just looking at MMA experience, right? Alan Crowder, his last pro fight, against Justin Willis, came in December of 2017. Then he got injured, pulled out of a fight against Rashad Coulter, scraping the bottom of the barrel. This guy pulls out of with a rib injury, and he's been off a year. Greg Hardy has fought 4 times since then, including his 3 professional fights. So I get they haven't gone long, and I get he hasn't really fought in anybody, but Alan Crowder really is no world beater. He hasn't fought in great guys either. I just feel like it's the kind of fight that Greg Hardy probably rolls. Will Greg Hardy roll in fights 2, 3, 4, and 5, depending on who the opponent is? Maybe not. We're going to see a lot from him, hopefully, here. But this is like that tailor-made first opponent. So the UFC wants him to smoke this guy in the first round. Anybody who's betting him for 9,500 or minus 550 wants to steamroll in the first round. And one thing I'll add to your thing, he might punch him out with 2-3 punches and get that quick finish. But Crowder's strong enough that Hardy will drop him. You'll get the knockdown. Crowder will go down. Hardy will fall him to the ground. His coaches at ATT are second to none. They're going to know this guy's got no jiu-jitsu. So they won't tell him, stand back up. They won't tell him that. They're just going to tell him, get in the half guard and fucking mow this guy with elbows, which he will. So he'll get the knockdown, the ground and pound, the first round stoppage. It'll make it worth your while.
We have same odds, different fighter. We got Gregor Gillespie taking on Yancy Medeiros. Gillespie is 9,400 on DraftKings, minus 550 favorite. Medeiros, 6,800 plus 425. You know me. Gregor Gillespie is the Paul Shaughnessy brand. He is part of the team, part of, Habib, Tatiana Suarez. It's a certain level of wrestling, grappling prowess, and this guy's got the goods. Every single fight he goes out there is just domination from start to finish. He finds that takedown. Nobody can stop the takedown. And when he gets you there, it's just constantly getting a better position on you, trying to look for submissions. If you happen to get back up, he's taking you right back down. Some people get to the second round, and he's one of these kind of guys that, you kind of don't mind if it goes to round 2 because he's going to land more. Ideally, you go into this fight and Yancy gets up a bunch of times. I don't know if it's going to be actually possible. I would be very surprised if Yancy Medeiros is able to stop the takedown from Gregor Gillespie. He is the guy I think I'm paying up for the most up top here. Hardy may be a fade for me, and I just hope that he scores less than these guys. We'll talk about Sandhagen a little bit later on as well. I'm not as... The guy I like most up top, because I'm biased as hell, is Gregor Gillespie. I just think he gets the takedowns. Fair. Type of style, even if he somehow managed to go the distance, the style that this guy...
You don't think it goes the distance?
I mean, if it does go the distance.
I see it go the distance.
Or he finds a submission.
Right.
Maybe, you know what I mean?
Maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised either way. Even if it goes to decision with him, though, he's scoring big. He's scoring over 100 points. I feel the safest with him. There are questions about his striking and whether he gets involved in that, but he doesn't seem to have fallen in love too much with his striking. He'll throw a little bit so that he can utilize that wrestling, but he knows what his bread and butter is, and he's a guy I like rostering. Yeah, that's actually the most impressive thing about him. His wrestling might be the best in the divisions. Him or Khabib, his wrestling is phenomenal, but his ring IQ is on point, because you can tell he's worked on his striking, but you wouldn't know it, because he throws a couple punches and he goes right back to what he does best. So this is a guy that understands exactly what's going on. He understands the ground game very well. He just seems like a very bright individual. And I see him succeeding. The thing I'm starting to get with the whole Gregor Gillespie, and you and I have been probably his biggest supporter, but it's like, you got to piss or get off the pot here, bud. You're 31 years old. This is your 5th fight in the UFC. To this point, you've really not fought anybody notable. Gleiko Fraka's UFC debut, again, we're both on him, underdog for that fight, takes it in Brazil. Gleiko Fraka was kind of like, he was a tough champion. He was kind of there. He was beating him in your first fight. And then to fight Jason Gonzalez, Jordan Rinaldi, and Vince Pichel in your subsequent 3 fights. Pichel's no slouch.
No, and he steamrolls him. It's like, who does that? If you beat him, that's one thing. But Pichel's no slouch. But it's also why you're not even whiffing that top 15. And here we're talking about this guy's a top 5 contender. He's really not proven it. And yeah, Yancy Medeiros is a little bit more of a name, but Yancy Medeiros' tall, lanky striking style, if he just gets dumped to the ground and Gillespie has his way, again, 31 years old, is he in the prime of his career right now? I'm sure he's still a little bit green in some aspects of MMA. He needs some time to grow, but he needs to start considering fighting. Again, we talked about Alexander Hernandez. He's got the goods, and now they're testing him, whereas Gregor Gillespie, he has the goods. Why are we not testing him? So I think he beats Yancy Medeiros. I think he rolls on him. I don't necessarily see the submission presenting itself. It could, but I think he gets the takedowns, and I think he just has his way with them on the ground. And whereas you would ideally, if you're going to roster him for $9,400, you would ideally want Yancy Medeiros to get back up, but that tall, lanky frame, hard to get back up. And therefore, I don't see Gillespie scoring 6 or 7 takedowns. I see him scoring 3 or 4 takedowns. So I'm avoiding the 9,400. If he was to get the submission late in the second or early in the third, midway through the third, and there's a lot of ground and pound, some transitional changes, you're right. Better play than Greg Hardy. But my heart tells me Hardy, if he ices him in 2 minutes, he's going to get that value. And for $100 less, Gillespie's either got to absolutely dominate pillar to post. Which he does. Yeah, you know what? Not a bad play. I would like to see who's got the lower ownership and go with that guy, but it's hard to tell.
There is no right answer, at least before the event actually happens.
I had to make a quick dad joke.
Who to pay up to at the top here. What's up?
Yeah, Gregor Gillespie loves fishing. Loves fishing so much that come Saturday in Brooklyn, he's going to make Yancy Medeiros look like a fish out of water because he cannot wrestle. That's my dad joke of the day, Paul.
We got Joseph Benavidez taking on Dustin Ortiz. Joseph Benavidez, 9,000 on DraftKings, minus 220 favorite. Dustin Ortiz is 7,200 plus 180. It's funny how one fight just changes everything, because Joseph Benavidez, we were sitting here going, why is he an underdog against Alex Perez in his last fight? And why a significant underdog to that? Had him all over DraftKings. Now, the way that it finished, and there were some strikes to the back of the head, it was a little bit whatever. But I've been on the other side of that as well. So
definitely been on the other side.
I was more than happy to accept it. But now we come out, we go, now he's going up against a well-established veteran who's been around, and sure enough, he's a sizable favorite. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be a sizable favorite, but it's funny how everyone was willing to just kill him. This guy's career is over. He's done. He's never going to be the same. And then now he's taking on Dustin Ortiz, who's looked good, and he looks like he's making his own improvements in his game. And everybody is back on Joseph Benavidez. I don't hate Dustin Ortiz. Maybe as a cash game play. I think he's able to survive against Joseph Benavidez long enough to get at least points. And if it kind of turns into a scramble fest, Benavidez has the better BJJ. And, he's been for years, he was kind of the BJJ trainer at Team Alpha Male. Ortiz can definitely hang. He's hung with Pantoja. The one issue here is that some of these other guys that usually he out scrambles and starts winning the later rounds, Benavidez doesn't really get tired. So I like Benavidez to win. 9,000 price is just too much. Anytime I've been building lineups early in the week here, I just haven't really been able to get to him whatsoever. And TJ Dillashaw is $100 cheaper. I like TJ, so it's. I don't know. I don't imagine Joseph Benavidez will be very owned if you want to go in that direction. I think Benavidez wins, but it's a stay away from me, and just hope that nobody goes off in this fight.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think Joseph Benavidez, rightful favorite at 220. The 9,000 I don't agree with as much. I totally see the 2-1. I don't really see the 9,000. Basically, this is a tale of we have a flyweight division that we're closing down, and we've just gotten rid of the majority of the roster. So who are we going to keep? So we're going to keep Cejudo. He's the champion. And we're going to keep Joseph Benavidez. The guy's been fighting for us since the dawn of time, it feels like. His wife, Megan O'Leary, is a staff member with us. She does a fantastic job. He trains at the UFC Performance Institute. We like Joseph Benavidez. We're going to keep him around. And the outcry from fans to keep Davidson Figueroa. Got to keep this guy. So they match up Benavidez with Figueroa because that's a logical fight. If Henry Cejudo wins and he retains the title, he could fight Benavidez again if Benavidez wins here, obviously, because Benavidez beat him once. There's a storyline there. At least you try it, right? Give Benavidez that last crack. Doesn't got to fight Demetrius anymore. Give him that last crack for that UFC goal and see what he can do. And likewise, if Davidson Figueroa was to beat Joseph Benavidez, then give this guy the title shot. The guy looks immaculate at 125. Let him fight, the winner of Henry Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw. But Figueroa pulls out. Now you got Dustin Ortiz, who you don't really want to cut. He's an exciting fighter. He's already fought Joseph Benavidez, and he got smoked pillar to post 30-27 all 3 rounds. He got doubled up on all of his strikes. He got taken down twice. Joseph Benavidez was just the better fighter. And Benavidez has fought 6 times since. Ortiz has fought something like 8 times since. I'm sure they're different. Ortiz is a better striker now, but I just see it playing out the same way. If you look at Joseph Benavidez, one of the greatest flyweights of all time, his losses have come to only the best. Beats Cejudo, controversial split, beats him. It's that knee injury, right? So like you're talking about, people are always, you're only as good as your last fight. It's because he takes a year plus off because of the knee injury. Then he fights Sergio Pettis and it looks like shit. It looks like shit because he's been off for so long.
Yeah, because he probably rushed himself back a little bit. He's like, I got to get back in there. Time is running out. He's a flyweight. you don't see flyweights doing all that well late into their 30s, right? It's a speed game, and he's trying to rush, make the most of what he has left of his career.
Yeah, well, the other thing too, and this is a horse thing. If you've got a 4-year-old horse that hurts its leg, you give it some time off. It comes back from its injury, and second or third start off the shelf, it's back because it's young and it's good. If you've got a 7 or 8-year-old horse, you can give that horse 6 months off. You can get him a year off. When he comes back, it takes some time. It takes 4, 5, 10 starts, 20 starts. But when they get going, they can come back to their true selves if they're not shot. I don't believe Joseph Benavidez is shot. He's getting a little bit older. For this division, it's all speed. So if you're going to fight Dustin Ortiz, you'd better have your speed packed with you. But I don't think he's shot. I just feel like coming off the year-long layoff, he had a lot of ring rust. It did affect him. He still lost a split to Sergio. It wasn't like he got completely washed out. It's that people really expected him to use his wrestling a little bit more and win that fight. Doesn't look great. That's why he's the underdog against Perez. Looks great against Perez. That's why he's the favorite here. You're only as good as your last fight in MMA. Benavidez is a thing of that. But I think he's deep down, I think he's the better wrestler than Dustin Ortiz. I think he's the better striker, even though Ortiz has made a lot of improvements. And he's the better straight grappler. So I feel like he's going to win these exchanges on the feet. They're going to wrestle a little bit. They're going to grapple a little bit. He's going to come out on top. And maybe it's not a 30-27 clear across the board this time, but 29-28. The 9,000, not playing at the 220. Sprinkle at some places, yeah.
We have Paige VanZandt taking on Rachel Ostovich. Paige VanZandt, 8,400 and a -160 favorite. Ostovich is 7,800 and +140. Who do you like here?
Yeah, you talk about storylines, and this is another one. UFC wants to get Paige VanZandt back in the win column, and this is exactly what they're doing. They got a lot invested in Paige VanZandt, being that, they pushed her really early in her career. She's fought actually some of the division's top fighters. They haven't really given her the easy task. There's a lot of marketability there, but fact of the matter is that she's 1-3 in her last 4 contests. She's lost her last 2, coming off a broken arm against Jessie Jess Rose Clark, and a long layoff. Just gets married. We need to get this girl a win, but who's she going to beat? Well, we got a girl here in Rachel Ostovich that shouldn't be in the UFC. It's 4-4. It's a middling 500 record. She's got a big pair of cannons on her, and she's pretty good looking. It's just the fight to make. It's such the fight to make that this girl goes through some personal shit, probably shouldn't even be on the card, and they save the matchup. That's how much.
Well, she wanted to fight on it.
Yeah, okay, don't get me wrong. I'm sure she wanted to fight on it. I'm not saying they forced her into it. I'm saying a lot of organizations would have said, like, you know what? Don't worry about it. We'll find somebody else. We'll book you a month later against somebody else. Don't even worry about it. But this is like, oh, you want to fight? Okay, no problem. Don't worry. Yeah, we'll make sure we don't
happen.
We can make that happen. So, anyways, I just look at Rachel Ostovich, and here's a girl that loses her pro debut. Invicta, doesn't look particularly great. Split decision win over Ariel Beck, who is absolutely horrendously bad. Loses to Christine Ferrier, who was 0-0 at the time. She gets on to the UFC with a 3-2 record, having just lost to a debuting fighter in Invicta. It beats Melinda Fabian. Terrible. No grappling. Ostovich, little bit of grappling. Submits her. Fights Barb Honchak. Shot. Still can't beat Barb Honchak. Loses that one. And then gets Karen Gevorgian, Dr. Death, in the finale. Like, talk about just milking this. No grappling. She's got a little bit of grappling. She wins. She is in, and then she loses to Montana De La Rosa. And that's how I see this fight going. Montana De La Rosa was a good collegiate wrestler, female wrestler. And she pushes a decent little grappling pace. She's super scrappy. Her husband, Mark De La Rosa, BJJ black belt, she's got good grappling. She puts a pace on people. She breaks them down. She takes them down. She makes it scrappy, and she submits them. That's what she did against Ostovich. She won the first round. Second was a little bit closer. I still gave it to De La Rosa. And in the third round, she just took her down and submitted her. Paige VanZandt will do that. Paige VanZandt, if she's healed, which I think she is, she looks to be in great shape. Her leaving Alpha Male, I think, would be a good thing in the long run because she's in Portland, Oregon now, and Gracie Baja. And they're just tough, rugged, Pacific Northwest wrestlers. And that's what she needs to beat a flimsy fighter like Rachel Ostovich that hopes to throw up a triangle. If you want to beat Paige VanZandt, it's not going to be a bum armbar or triangle. No. It's like, you're going to have to beat this girl.
No, and she's been up against Rose. She was in very precarious situations, and she was able to fight out of it until the end of the fight. But like, we saw her toughness. Her arm looked like it was like about to snap in half. She didn't tap out to that.
In her last fight against Jessie Jess, Rose Clark is not even a 25-year. She's massive. She's a big 35-er, fighting little old 115 Paige VanZandt. Paige VanZandt breaks her arm, still goes 3. There's no quit in this girl. We've seen her bloodied up. We've seen her break her arm. We've seen her in some bad positions, but she don't give up. And I think that's it. When you look at Ostovich's Karen Gevorgian, Montana De La Rosa, Melinda Fabian, Christine Feria, Those are her last 4 opponents. Whereas Paige VanZandt has taken on the likes of Michelle Watterson, the current champ Rose Namajunas, massive Jess Rose Clark. She's got a win over Felice Herrig. Like, it's apples and oranges. It really is. So I don't mind the line here, -160 at all. I think that's a lot of hate coming in on VanZandt. Oh, 2-fight losing streak. Didn't look good against Beth Ross before she landed that switch kick. But like, I get it, but like this is getting her back to her roots where she just rolls on people that are hapless and you know, against her aggression. When she takes on world-class opponents, they can handle her aggression. But this is not a world-class opponent. She gets the win. OSTOVICH should get cut, but they'll keep her around for one more, even though she'll have a 4-5 record just because she's doing them a favor by even sticking in this fight. So that's where I see this one going. The 8,400 for Paige VanZandt, I actually like it because when she's on, she pushes a pace, man. There's a lot of scrambles. This is women's 125, and this girl's a natural 115er. She might be able to style a little bit, just get some takedowns, ugly takedowns. OSTOVICH might get back up, and she'll just plant her back down. I'm not in love. 8,400.
Not in love with this fight from a DraftKings perspective.
I don't mind this.
And
I don't mind this one bit.
To wrap it all up in a bow here, UFC can't lose on this fight. OSTOVICH wins. They have a attractive fighter that the fan base really loves, and then if VanZandt wins, they still have a good look. But like one that's way more marketable with VanZandt. Of course,
if OSTOVICH wins, she's 5-4. This is the most notable victory of her career, and you can't really do much with her. If Paige VanZandt wins, she's 8-4. She's written the losing streak.
Win.
You know what it comes down to? You know what it comes down to?
Cody,
you know what it comes down to, Paul?
You know what, Cody? It's the new year. Stop sweating the small things.
You know what it comes down to?
I thought you were talking about this earlier on. You're already sweating the small things.
You're getting me fucking fired up, Paul. It comes down to I like blondes and you like brunettes, and that's okay. We know Pat Mayo likes #Reds.
It's true. Let's go. Let's move on. We have Glover Teixeira taking on Carl Roberson. Glover Teixeira in the 8,300 on DraftKings, -125 favorite. Roberson is 7,900 and +105. I think this is kind of a overreaction to Glover Teixeira and people thinking that he's absolutely done. He's getting old. We know that he's not as fast anymore. He did not look good whatsoever at any point in that fight against Corey Anderson. But Corey Anderson's a guy who is on a good winning streak himself. He's just consistently...
He'll make you look old and slow because he's young and fast.
Exactly.
So it is what it is.
I like Glover in this spot. Assuming something like the line and everything about it just leads me to believe that like maybe the books know something about Glover that we don't. But we saw when you have Shirkinov coming up and he's got a bunch of really impressive, submission victories, but just like, well, what happens when he's not able to take you down? And we saw with Glover, it's just like Glover takes him down immediately. Glover is able to find that submission. Roberson, obviously a kickboxer by trade, but he's got a little bit of a submission game that he's got. That is not going to work against Glover. Glover kind of dictates where this fight takes place. And I think Glover's wrestling is technical enough that he's going to be able to get this to the ground. We're going to see Carl Roberson struggle like he did against a guy like Cesar Mutante Ferreira. So, Glover... and we're at 205 as well. Roberson has fought at 185. This is at 205. He was never really big at 185, I didn't really think. I think everything lines up perfectly for Glover here. I think he's kind of getting disrespected because he's old and people are always looking for the new hot thing. But this is the type of fight that Glover wins, and he continues to get a few more fights. I know that the end is near, but I'm not too worried about what Carl Roberson's going to be able to do to him. So, like, that's why I was saying I don't really like VanZandt from a DraftKings perspective, because in this exact same range, I got Glover.
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing. I needed you to actually talk me off of Glover. So now that I know we're on the same page, I don't love that. The thing with Glover is because there's a lot of risk there. And I like Glover, and I agree with all the points you made. In fact, to add on top of that, you've got Glover Teixeira, who, he could do it both. He can wrestle and he can throw strikes. Against Corey Anderson, the wrestling's out the window. You're not going to wrestle that guy. And maybe he's slowing down ever so slightly that he can't catch a quick guy like that. You look at Roberson, oh, geez, this guy's big, he's tall, he's long. Kickbox Jerome LeBanner, good kickboxing background. he got taken down against Cesar Ferreira and he looked way out of water, man. Like there's a way big difference from being on top of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, right? And then being in a situation where you got Cesar Ferreira on top of you, who is just a far superior grappler. And the thing with Ferreira is, and that we've noticed, is that Ferreira is he is so mid-level, it's crazy. But he's got mediocre wrestling, decent ground game. If he can get you down, he'll have his way with you. Guys that can survive that are a little more than mid-level, they beat him every time. Roberson showed that night that's like, man, not good if you're on the ground. That's going to be a big problem against Glover Teixeira. You mentioned the fact that Roberson going up to 205. Roberson's going up to 205 because he's taking this fight on short notice, replacing Ion Cutelaba. So now we got a guy that's on short notice, okay, who's moving up a weight class to take on Glover Teixeira, who might be a little bit slower, sure, but what about when he does track this guy? And besides, he's not lost standing. He's just a little slower. Did Corey Anderson knock him out in the first round? No. Did Alexander Gustafsson knock him out in the first round? No, it took him a long time. In fact, he took a sustained beating in that fight. And if you want to say that was the night he was shot, he rebounds from that in the Misha fight, which is a fight that you and I backed him then. Yeah. And he was the underdog, and it looked half silly, and he looked really good. And that's what we're both hoping for here, is that he's not quite shot either. He's got a couple more hurrahs left in the tank, and a short-nosed replacement opponent moving up a weight class who already really can't wrestle to begin with. Buddy, why would you not want Glover Teixeira in that situation? So, yeah, I look at the fact that he's minus 125, maybe a little bit disrespectful, $8,300. I don't know why I don't like it as much as VANZANT. I'll tell you why I don't like it. Because VANZANT's 3 times faster, just because they're both faster, because they're literally, 85 pounds, 80 pounds lighter?
Sure.
You know? It's just, there's going to be a lot more movement, there's going to be quicker takedowns, there's going to be more ground transitions, and there's going to be quick strikes. Roberson's going to be tentative to throw his strikes against Glover because Glover's going to bomb him and he doesn't want to get himself tired. He's not shown a propensity to get tired, Roberson, but he's moving up a weight class and taking a fight on short notice. So what do you really know about his gas tank and those odds? I don't know. Tough one, but I think we're on the same page in that it's just kind of disrespectful to overlook Glover. And if he gets his wrestling into play, especially early, he's got a serious shot here.
The line does seem a little bit weird. I guess I should have said earlier in the show that the odds and lines are subject to change. See website for actual odds if you or anybody you know has a gambling problem and wants help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. As we move into the next one, which is Alexander Hernandez taking on Donald Cowboy Cerrone at 155 pounds. Alexander Hernandez is 8,600 minus 200 favorite. Cerrone is 7,600 and plus 170. I buy into everything I've seen from Alexander Hernandez so far. Guy looks like the complete package. Plus, he's super smart. If you ever watch any of his interviews, this guy's got a good mindset about the fight game. I think he was like a data analyst or something like that before coming into it. Like just a sharp guy who realizes that like he's got an opportunity here, and he's doing the most with it. Beating OAM. OAM is pretty tough out, especially earlier on in your career. Most people did not see the Dariush absolute starching coming on.
Dariush didn't see that forearm.
No, and then we go against Cerrone. It's just like, well, if Alexander Hernandez that showed up against Dariush shows up against Donald Cerrone, that is Donald Cerrone's kryptonite. Is a guy who's just going to put a lick in, put a pace on you right at the beginning, just as you're trying to get warmed up. And Hernandez is smart enough. We'll see how it plays out as the week goes on. But at weigh-ins and the little stare downs that they have throughout the week and stuff, I think Hernandez is going to just stone cold him. Like he's not going to give him any sort of we're buddies, that type of thing. Like he's cerebral enough to know that that's what Cerrone does to kind of get you to like play his game during, like it's all kind of part of the mental warfare leading into the fight. I like Hernandez. I suppose if it got to the ground, Cerrone does have a lot more of a proven BJJ game, but I think Hernandez kind of dictates where the fight takes place in this fight here, and I really like him to win. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on Alexander Hernandez. What's your take here?
Yeah, no, honestly, I think that deep down it's another storyline situation. I think the UFC sees that they might have something nice here in Alexander Hernandez, and why not let that blossom? It makes almost no sense for Donald Cerrone to take this fight. Literally, my opinion, makes no sense for him to take this. He's 35 years old. He's coming over a low-level win in Mike Perry, but it's got people talking. And people are mentioning his name alongside maybe he's McGregor's comeback opponent because McGregor needs a win. That's what you should be holding out for. And if you are going to take a fight, you're going to fight somebody who's, you're going to fight Carlos Condit at 170. You're going to fight someone who's maybe shot or just a little bit older and still has a name. You're not going to fight some 26-year-old up a young go-getter. And I think that's how the UFC would look at it. On a matchmaking standpoint, if you got Donald Cerrone, he's got name cachet, and that's just about it. I mean, does he still got skills? Absolutely. Are his skills as sharp as they once were? No. Can he beat that next generation of fighter? I don't think so. Can he beat mid-level guys and guys that are a little bit over the hill? Absolutely. But this doesn't fit that, and I think he's in for a tough one. On top of all that, I mean, he's going back down to 155. Donald Cerrone is a guy that's got to live his life. He likes to go wakeboarding, likes to go mountain climbing, likes to go on vacation, likes to go bull riding. He does these things. He goes into the fight and he performs because he needs that proper mindset. Him being at 55, he's got to be disciplined. He's got to make that cut. At 35 years old, I don't know his body reacts quite as well. He's always been a slow starter. He's going to be an even slower starter now that he's got to go back down that weight class. And he's not going back down to 155 to fight some older 55er. He's taking on a 26-year-old kid. This kid's got 9 years in the youth department on him. He's faster. He's stronger. He doesn't have the same skill level. Like he's not as a technical striker as Donald Cerrone, but that doesn't matter because he's got the aggression and the power and the strength. And as far as the ground game goes, it's like I think he's the better wrestler. So Cerrone will struggle to take him down. Hernandez, again, like you mentioned, smart guy, probably smart enough to know I don't really want to take down Donald Cerrone. And taking down Donald Cerrone, it's not a death trap, He's got a triangle and an armbar, but you can scout that shit out, which I think Hernandez will. I think Hernandez is also a New York guy, so I think guys like him and Gregor Gillespie. Maybe he's not in New York.
No, Hernandez is from Texas.
Right. I'm off on that. But Gregor's a local guy. Like, he'll feed off it. Sorry. But all the same with Alexander Hernandez. Again, a young guy here that you make your debut as a massive underdog and you smoke Beneil Dariush. Your second fight against Olivier Aubé-Mercier, I think he was the underdog there as well. We backed him, but I'm pretty sure he was the underdog there as well, and he looks fantastic. Now it's like you're the favorite. You're taking on a big veteran like Donald Cerrone. The UFC knows what happens here. You win this fight, we can insert you into big fights, especially if you look good. Whereas Donald Cerrone, it's like he's just playing the gatekeeper role. And that's a role that he's comfortable with.
Because he's done it for a while. And they're willing to give him lots of fights. And that's what Donald Cerrone's always wanted. Give me lots of fights. I'm not going to say no to anybody, regardless of how high of a prospect they are or anything like that. It's a great role because he definitely vets out like who's a top 10 guy and who's not a top 10 guy. And sounds like we're both on the same page that Alexander Hernandez fits the bill of one of those next level guys.
I look at Donald Cerrone's record like this, right? Matt Brown. We're going to have a fun fight, buddy. And he beats him. Jorge Masvidal. The guy's not fucking around. He's coming at you, and he loses. Robbie Lawler. The guy doesn't fuck around. He comes after you. He loses. Darren Till. The guy's not fucking around. He comes after you. He loses. Yancy Medeiros. Let's have a good time, buddy. He wins. Leon Edwards just out-grapples him, but not fucking around. And then Mike Perry, it's another let's have some fun. Donald Cerrone is there to have some fun. And he can win in fights that are just fun fights. But this is a contender fight. This is not a fun fight. This is a contender fight. And those days are over for Donald Cerrone. Yep. So I got to go with Alex Hernandez.
Ariane Lipski takes on Joanne Calderwood. Lipski is 8,800 on DraftKings, minus 220 favorite. Calderwood is 7,400 and plus 180. For anybody who doesn't know, Ariane Lipski is the KSW flyweight champion. She looks like she's pretty technical, really nice kicks. Solid all-around fighter. I am a little bit surprised, though, based on her record and who she's fought and what she's done, that she's this big of a favorite. How do you see this one shaking out?
Yeah, I got mixed feelings about this one. As you can see so far through the card, Dillashaw, Hardy, Gillespie, Benavidez, Paige VanZandt, Glover TEIXEIRA, even though that one's kind of a 50-50. Alex Hernandez, it's like at some point, what dog's going to come through? There's a couple dogs I could see crushing in that upper portion, even though we're taking the favorites. But like, Joanne Calderwood's one of those savvy veterans that's like you don't want to overlook, and the price tag seems just about right at plus 180. If you are going to take a shot on somebody, why not take a shot on Joanne Calderwood? I think Joanne Calderwood doesn't really get the respect that she deserves. She's had an up and down career in the sense that she's gone from super highly touted prospect to, wow, she doesn't actually have a ground game, to, well, she made it to the Ultimate Fighter, to, well, actually she just doesn't have the mental confidence, and she's always kind of ballooned up and down weight. 115 was rougher, 125 a little bit better. But, I look at something very interesting. You know, she looked phenomenal against Valerie Letourneau. She really did. She smokes her. And then she gets smoked out by Jessica Andrade. That Cynthia Calvillo fight, you know, when you look back at that, not a great fight. The first round, she loses, but it's a close round. She lands the better strikes, but she gives up the takedowns. The second round, despite two judges giving it 30-27, that's a Calderwood round. And the third round, again, I mean, Cynthia Calvillo doesn't do nothing to the last minute of the round, but it's Calderwood prior to that. So that's like a close fight that you lose that'll go down on paper as a 30-27 loss, and it causes people to just kind of get off the bandwagon. Now, then she fights Kalindra Faria. Now, Kalindra Faria, pretty one-dimensional, but a striker. So this is striker versus striker. Calderwood's a striker. She's a European Muay Thai champion. She's taking on, you know, a tough Brazilian in Kalindra Faria. And then that's when you see with Joanne Calderwood that she's not just a Muay Thai striker. She's a mixed martial artist. Triangle armbar, looks pretty. This girl does have a decent little ground game, and that would be a big key here, is taking on Ariel Lipski and just take this girl to the ground. Yes, you're a Muay Thai fighter, and yes, she's a Muay Thai fighter. As far as paper goes, this is two girls that are going to stand in the middle of the cage, and they're going to throw strikes. Calderwood's 33 now, and even though she's got some pretty strikes, she's fucking slow, man. She got really bad footwork as far as I'm concerned. She's a gritty Muay Thai fighter, likes the elbows, likes the knees, but against speed and athleticism, she'll get chewed up. And Lipski's got that. So I understand why Lipski's the favorite. I understand why people like Lipski, but that's just assuming that this is just striker versus striker for 15 minutes. If Calderwood gets the takedown, and I believe she's still at TriStar, that was one thing that they really worked on, is everyone
rounding out her game.
Everybody assumes you're going to strike because that's all you've ever really done. Sure. So surprise them, and that's what she's going to have to do here. For plus 180, I'd be willing to say that out of the rest of the underdogs we've talked about so far, it's a price that seems right on Calderwood if you're willing to take the shot. I don't love the fact that she's getting a little bit older and we don't know where her motivation level is at. But again, let's say that Calvillo fight goes her way. Then this is a girl that's on a roll. One loss to Jessica Andrade tossed in the mix. Who cares about that?
Yeah.
Now she's taking on the KSW champion. Big deal. How have KSW champions fared against world-class North American talent? Right? So
For sure.
Again, variables, but I think that would be my first dog play. I'm not super confident in it, but that would be the first. That would be the first one I'm looking at, anyways.
More or less on the same page as you on that one. I just think it's a little bit too wide. I don't think I'm going to make a play on it.
I need the take. If you are, you got to hope for the takedown, I think.
And Calderwood doesn't make a horrible cash play on DraftKings if you're looking for somebody to save on, right?
Yeah.
7,400. Hopefully, you at least get 3 rounds. It may not be the highest scoring type of affair, but at 7,400, she doesn't have to go crazy. And if she gets the win, even if she gets 70 points in that type of situation, like this type of card with a lot of big chalk favorites, that may be good enough.
Yeah, the 72 for Ortiz, because it'll go 3 rounds, so get some rounds, and that. Those are 2 good value plays that maybe, you know, as far as a cheap play goes, they're underdogs. They're both underdogs for a reason, but underdogs with a chance to get you some points.
Alonzo Menifield takes on Vincius Castro Alves, or Vincius Castro, or Vincius Alves. I'm not sure exactly. Brazilians in their names. We might as well call this guy Frankenstein.
They're all Frankenstein.
Alonzo Menifield is 9,100 on DraftKings, a minus 280 favor. Vincius Castro Alves, or what's he on the board? He is Vincius Castro, so we'll go with that. Castro is 7,100 and plus 240. Watched Dana Contender Series.
They were both
Brazil.
Contender Series. One was just in Vegas and one was in Brazil.
Yeah, I watched Alves's fight, and this guy's basic, man. He's going to try to rush up against the cage. He's going to try to hold you there. He's going to try to take you to the ground. He doesn't really have great wrestling. At the beginning of round 2, he had like a decent entry, but it was like, it's pretty obvious that that's what he's looking for. He jumped underneath like a hook and grabbed a single and then pushed the guy up against the cage, was able to get the fight to the ground. When he gets the fight to the ground, his BJJ is all right, but nothing groundbreaking or anything. There's a reason why Menifield is such a big favorite here. Menifield has been on Dana White Contender Series twice, getting finishes, especially in his last one. Pretty devastating finish.
No, that fight, Deshaun Boatwright. They're quick finishes, though.
They're very quick.
They make you worry a little bit.
They do make you worry a little bit. If Castro is able to... I just worry. I just don't know if Castro has the strength to really hold Menifield up against the cage. Because that's what he's going to want to do. He's going to want to make this dirty. He's going to want to close the distance. He's going to want to hold him up against the cage. He's going to want to drain that gas tank and then hope in round 2, round 3, he's able to kind of take over. Otherwise, he probably gets starched, taken out on a stretcher.
This is what I would go with. I would say if you're looking to play a cash game, then you're looking for the Calderwood, you're looking for the Dustin Ortizes. If you're looking to cut your losses, even though you're playing in a big tournament, I could see still playing them. But if you're looking for a punt, A guy like Castro is what you're looking for. Because he's like Alan Crowder in that it's not him winning, it's his opponent just losing. But Alan Crowder is a tougher sell for me personally than a guy like Vinicius Castro. I'm actually picking Alonzo Menefield, but Alonzo Menifield's got all 7 of his wins really fast, first and second round. He goes in there and he just dusts people quick. Castro doesn't seem like he can strike to save his life. So chances are that Castro is going to get knocked down in the first round. Alonzo Menifield's going to do to him exactly what he's done to his previous 7 opponents. He's just going to swarm them. I think if you're the UFC, we've got a young, athletic, good-looking guy here, undefeated record, explosive power, is a potent finisher so far. You want that guy. With Castro, it's a harder sell. He's just another zillion name Brazilian guy on the roster. What do you really do with him? You use him to, alleviate a guy like Alonzo Menefield. Greg Hardy, yeah, he played in the NFL. He's a former, I think, 2-time Pro Bowler from the Dallas Cowboys. But Menefield played in the CFL. I know it's worlds apart, but the guy's an athlete, right? He played football collegiately, Texas A&M, their D2 version of the school. He's a good athlete. He gets to MMA a little bit late, but just like a guy like Greg Hardy, he's picking it up and he's proven that, hey, he's not all that bad. But just like Greg Hardy, he's going to run into somebody eventually who doesn't go down in the first 4 minutes and has a decent little grappling game, and that's going to cause more problems. And maybe Castro's that guy, because Castro, yeah, again, on his Dana White Contender Series fight, he looked out of it on the feet, but decent little entry. And when he hits the ground, you got to realize this guy's 205 pounds. So he didn't move that bad on the ground. Like, he was very fluid. I would say that he's a grappler by nature, and that's what he's going to want to do. Menefield will come in. Menefield will try to knock this guy out. Maybe this guy pulls guard. Maybe Castro just hopes that the young, brash American tires himself out trying to punch him out. But eventually, he would hope that a dirty, little sloppy transition leads to them being on the ground, and he's got a tired Menefield under him. That would be his best path. So I would avoid it altogether just because I'm not fully sold on Menefield, and it is a big price tag. Could he get the first round knockout? Yeah. Would $9,100 be a good price for him? Yeah, because he's got similar upside to Greg Hardy, and he's $400 cheaper. But there's just something there. There's something there that makes it like, who's going to shit in the apple pie? Like, this guy could be your apple pie shitter. So for that reason, and that I've taken a lot of favorites on this card, it's like, I've got to narrow the ones that I don't trust. I don't trust Lipski. I don't trust Alonzo Menefield. So therefore, I think that those are a couple underdog opponents that have a shot. Again, that's a pun play. If you're going for that big GPP, imagine Castro takes a beating for the first 3 minutes and submits this guy. We've seen that happen 100 times. Then he would score big for you at this price.
For sure. We got Corey Sandhagen taking on Mario Bautista. Corey Sandhagen is 9,300 and a minus 500 favorite. Bautista 6,900 and plus 400. Corey Sandhagen was supposed to take on my boy that doesn't really fit the Paul Shag brand, but he's Johnny Lineker. And if you don't like him, you should probably just stop watching fighting altogether. Johnny Lineker's the best. That was going to be fireworks. It was going to be so much fun. I was looking forward to it, and I was looking forward to rostering my boy Johnny Lineker again, because I just can't help myself with him.
But then Corey Sandhagen actually hit the lottery.
No. What do you mean?
I got a phone call saying Lineker's out of the fight.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Who do I got to fight now? What's his name again? It doesn't even matter. Don't even worry about it. I don't got to fight John Lineker. He's the one pulling out. I look like a gangster.
All of my friends and family are very happy that I won't be like, you go to war against Johnny Lineker. Unless you're able to take him down and neutralize him completely. We saw TJ Dillashaw do it, but not many people are able to take that pressure. Mario Bautista, watching a little bit of tape on him. He was in Tachi Palace a couple times, which you are the Tachi Palace expert here, the guy who loves some Tachi Palace fights. And he was supposed to fight on the LFA card on February 2nd. So the guy was at least in a camp at the time. He doesn't look too bad. Like, I don't think he's a scrub. I think he doesn't necessarily look like he doesn't belong at this level, but coming in on short notice against a guy who was getting ready for the biggest fight of his career. Sandhagen also trains with TJ Dillashaw, I believe. Yeah. And we have Dillashaw probably putting in one of his best camps, getting ready for this one, Dillashaw puts in hard camps. Dillashaw is always prepared for every single fight. So I would imagine training alongside him, getting ready for this is it's going to be good for him. I don't think Batista's all that bad. That's why when I look at like the top 3 guys here, when we look at Hardy, Gillespie, Sandhagen, I like Gillespie the most. Just like the wrestling, safety, takedowns, that type of thing. I can understand Hardy. This fight could be a little bit more competitive, I think. I think people may be sleeping on Batista. I don't think he wins it all, but I don't think he's an absolute schlub that doesn't belong here. The pick is Sandhagen, and he has such a furious pace when he does fight that he is a guy you should consider rostering for sure. But I don't think it's a blowout. What's your take?
Yeah, I got some mixed feelings on it. I think Sandhagen wins. I think we're pretty clear on that. The 9,300, that's the real question mark. Because again, are you going to trust him over the likes of Greg Hardy or Gregor Gillespie? Is he in that class? Should he be in that class? He pushes a tremendous pace. And even though I don't think Mario Batista is the true definition of short notice, being that he had a fight coming up, it's still 2 weeks earlier. He's got to go up there, making his UFC debut, bright lights, against Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen's got a notorious slick body attack, and it just eats you away and slows you down. And being that this kid's coming in on somewhat of a short notice, I just feel like he'll actually go out there and show you in the first round, damn, Mario Batista's got some skills. He's not that bad. But I think by rounds 2 or 3, he's gonna hit the adrenaline dump. His body's gonna be hurting. He's gonna slow down drastically. He probably gets finished at the end of 2, maybe into 3. Sandhagen's a kid that, again, we talk about Gregor Gillespie getting the easy path, it seems, to his 5th fight in the UFC. Whereas Corey Sandhagen, like, no favors done for this guy. Yeah, he fought Austin Hernandez debut. And then to fight Yuri Alcantara, and then to have a fight with John Lineker booked right after that. Like, what is going on here? Makes no sense. But it's like, they know what they got here. This kid on the undercard, by the way, because, yeah, he was just fighting on the regionals like 8 months ago. Like, tyrant. You can tell that the skill's there. So it's like, now you want to build him up. Him fighting Lineker, to me, makes no sense. Let him fight 2 or 3 more times. But it's like, there's something there. So you want to keep him on the card.
And hey, training with TJ's probably like, this is a guy who, Lineker's a guy who I can teach you everything about what you do to neutralize this guy. And it's just whether he would be able to implement that same type of game plan, you get the takedowns and be able to stay out of trouble like TJ was able to do. But you're hanging out with the guy to have the most dominant performance of recent memory over John Lineker. So maybe that was a thing from their camp of like, hey, we know how to get ready for Johnny Lineker.
And see, you know what? Now we go back to what I said about overthinking the little things. I'll tell you why, because Mario Batista coming out of the MMA lab, you talk about who's better to get ready for John Lineker than TJ Dillashaw and Dwayne Ludwig. Nobody. But I flip this on you. Who's the best coach in the world of getting mid-level talent ready for short notice debuts? John Crouch at the MMA lab.
For sure.
These guys come out of obscurity and fight guys who are certainly on paper just much better fighters than them. And
they give you tough fights.
Squeak them. So I do think Batista on a full camp could give Sandhagen a go and still lose. And him on short notice, I think he'll be real competitive the first round. And I think the adrenaline dump, the bright lights, the shorter notice opportunity, the body attack, that'll all play in. Sandhagen finishes him late second, early third, and I could see him scoring lots of points. But I like the other options. I do like Gillespie and Greg Hardy better, but I could see Sandhagen floating in as the less played option of the 3 because of name, because of card placement, and I don't know, various other things, I suppose. But if he's going to be less owned and he's got a high ceiling, then go for it. But I guess I'm trusting the other 2 guys a little bit more.
Our friend of the podcast, Big Vince Rodemer, he
shout out to Big V.
Yeah, he did one. He did mention one thing where he said, basically, he was just like, stop me from doing something silly like this. I was going to go with Sandhagen, Gillespie, and Hardy in the same lineup, which...
What else are you going to take?
That's what I said, is that when you do that...
Sounds real
I think
fun,
that leaves you with like 72-66 for your remaining 3. Like 72-66 basically each on average, right? And
so you take Henry and hope he wins, I guess.
Yeah, that's the problem, is at the bottom of your lineup, I guess
you have to take Dustin Ortiz.
You can take Calderwood, you can get Calderwood in there. You'd probably have to go with
She's 74, man. You'd have to take
you'd have to take somebody underneath as well. But like, so you take like Castro.
You'd have to go Castro.
If those 3
hit Castro, like that, you'd be laughing.
Or like a Dustin Ortiz or something like that. You can get those types, but like you're really, really suffering on the bottom end of your lineup. But
Hey,
I wouldn't.
but this is MMA,
I think
man.
It's MMA.
It could happen.
It's MMA and a GPP.
Goddamn
like I
right
think
it
it's
could.
something you could just. Hey, if all three of those guys put up like 130 each, and then you manage to somehow weasel out 3 really, really scrubby wins, that's a game changer. Not many people are gonna have that build because it's just so volatile. But
well, if you take the 3
I guess you could do it. But
I hear you.
It seems a little risky to me.
Wow, this is MMA. It's all risk
For
and
sure.
reward.
And you also
risk and reward.
I guess if
baby.
you like Cejudo, that strategy works. But like
You're just
TJ
giving away a strategy. Someone's going to play it now. But that would be the move. Is you put Cejudo, and if he wins a 5-round split decision,
Yeah,
if you
sure.
have Castro and he gets the submission,
Yeah.
then I think you would have to go Dustin Ortiz.
But avoiding TJ is scary. 5-round fight,
Yeah,
5-round
but
TJ,
still.
109 points in a loss to Dominic Cruz. Like this guy could put up 130 very easy.
Youngest Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling in American history, and dethrone the GOAT, Demetrius Johnson. It's not like you're betting some scrub.
No, of course not.
At
You're
least
right.
you're getting some world-class talent.
So Vince asked us to kind of touch on that. So I thought I would, now that we had broken down those 3 fights, just kind of talk
Right.
about the strategy. I'm not going to do it myself, but I guess it's feasible. It just seems a little bit too risky for me. We got T. Edwards taking on Dennis Bermudez. T. Edwards is 8,200 on DraftKings, minus 125 favorite. Dennis Bermudez is 8,000 and plus 105. T. Edwards coming off of the the Dana White Contender Series. Everyone was like, oh, he won first round knockout. The one person who wasn't confused by that,
Wow.
Cody Saftic, right across the board here, who said, Don Madge, I think Don Madge is going to make this interesting. Boy, oh boy, did Don Madge make it interesting. T. Edwards looked completely lost, but that kind of makes me worried about this one coming in. I know that we have Dennis Bermudez coming off 4 straight losses, and now he's losing to, before he was losing to like Korean Zombie, Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins is a tough fight for anyone.
Those
Then
are all
Feely, and then Rick Glenn.
They're tough fights.
They're tough fights, but like
It's progressively getting a little
Rick
easier.
Glenn
Yeah,
is not
right.
of that same ilk. I would not say. You can kind of see him struggling a little bit here. This seems like kind of trappy to me though, because like T. Edwards came in massive favorite against Don Madge. Madge was like a plus 400 underdog, and like T. Edwards got like literally dominated basically the entirety of the fight. And then now he's a favorite against more of a well-known name, a guy who's going to be fighting more or less in his own backyard in Dennis Bermudez. My concern is we've seen it with Bermudez. We saw it in the Chan Sung Jung fights. Like his chin isn't great, and sometimes when
He gets dropped all the time.
he gets dropped all the time.
Yeah, but he
and
gets up for the
T.
most part.
Edwards is probably just going to be throwing lasers, hoping that one of them connects.
That's a
The
bad
thing
game
is,
plan.
gambling on this one is super, super dangerous. I don't have a great feel on either one of this. This could go 3 rounds. The longer this fight goes, the more I favor Dennis Bermudez, landing leg kicks and kind of piecing up T. Edwards as the fight goes along. But if T. Edwards lands an absolute haymaker over the top on Dennis Bermudez and knocks him out in the first round, like I'm not going to be shocked either. It's a really risky fight. I think if I was playing, I think T. Edwards is a DK, GPP type of play.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
like if he wins,
High
it's
upside.
probably gonna be a
High
first round
upside.
knockout or at least an early second round type of knockout.
Yep.
And 8,200 will pay off his price tag in spades. But something makes me uneasy about this fight altogether. What's your take?
Yeah, if I'm looking for value plays on DK and I'm playing that big GPP, the upside on T. Edwards for 8,200 is there because he could win this fight. He could win this fight in the first round. He's got big power. We know that about him. The thing that's off for me with T. Edwards, and it's the reason why overall I'm only looking at T. Edwards as a good play for a DraftKings big tournament punt type of situation. But I'm going to go with Dennis Bermudez here, despite the 4-fight losing streak, which is scary. But T. Edwards probably, this guy probably wrestled for, I'm going to guess, 15 years of his life, and he's mastered it. That guy, really good wrestler. He's probably struck for, taking striking anyways, boxed, let's say, 5 years. Not a bad boxer, big power, big right hand. His inability to tie those two things together is crippling. And because he's fighting absolute nobodies, he doesn't have to tie them together. Because if you can't wrestle, which lower level guys can't, they're going to take you down. If you can't stand, which lower level guys can't, he's going to punch you out. He's got that big power. I likened him to Tyron Woodley prior to his debut against Madge, being that it's just a super green version of Tyron Woodley, but He's just a wrestler boxer. Big right hand, takes his time, sets it up, lands that big shot, and got a big power double on him. The thing is that Tyron Woodley's been through the gears. And I even liken it to the fact that him fighting Dodd Madge was in many ways like Tyron Woodley fighting Nate Marquardt. Is that you're going to fight a crafty guy with crafty moves that knows that is going to piece you up and he's going to hurt you and he's going to force you to go to plan B and C. And when you've never had to use anything other than your power wrestling and your big right hand, there is no plan B and C because plan A has worked every time. By the way, I talk about power wrestling. T. Edwards is a good wrestler, yes, but he doesn't wrestle in any of his fights. There's very few examples of this guy going into a fight and wrestling. He just touches guys with that right hand and they topple over. Yeah, you could say Dennis Bermudez is chinny, but who has he lost knockout losses to? Jeremy fucking Stevens and the Korean Zombie? He's fought the absolute best guys. You talk about 4-fight losing streak? Okay, Korean Zombie, Chang Sung Jung, a perennial top 10, top 15, even a guy that even challenged for a title. Darren Elkins, how tough is Elkins? Andre Feely, yeah, the guy's an up-and-coming prospect. Rick Glenn, savvy guy. The main thing is that he loses to Elkins, Feely, and Glenn all by split decision. This nice guy, he's not getting whitewashed in there. He's competitive, but he's got absolutely no ring IQ, and it oftentimes leads to him losing close decisions. He can beat these guys. He's a great athlete. He's a great wrestler. He ties his striking in well, doesn't got power, decent grappler, but he's a good athlete, and he can fight, but he's got a real poor ring IQ, and it causes him to lose these close decisions. Here's the biggest question for me. If I'm T. Edwards and I just got exploited bad against Don Madge, it's like I can't. He was so lost standing against Madge, but he had no ability to be like switch to wrestling mode and just take this guy down. He didn't know how to set up those shots. It was a big problem. Okay, 3 months since the Don Madge fight, which A, he got knocked out in. So do you think he was rushing back to the gym and doing hot sparring? No. And B, do you think that's enough time to reconfigure your shit? Nah, dog, it ain't. So the thing with Bermudez is that he's super fluid. Nobody's denying that. He's like Pat Cummins. He loses the big fight, but the skill is there. This guy's athletic. He's fast. He's in great shape.
Pat Cummins fluid.
But his striking is herky-jerky. Yeah. You're right. Dennis Bermudez is fluid, though. It's just like he loses the big fight because he makes stupid bonehead mistakes.
Well, now he's losing the small fight, though, too.
No, because Rick Glenn
was not a high-profile fight.
He's a former World Series of Fighting champion. He had 5 fights in the UFC at the time. He put on a life-changing beating on Gavin Tucker. Like, he's been to the dance. He can't wrestle for shit, but he's a fighter, man. The guy really is. Whereas T. Edwards, I'm not saying he's not a fighter, but really, 6-2, good collegiate wrestler, got some big power. We don't know if he's a fighter yet. We don't know because we haven't seen him face that adversity and come through it. He either touches them and they fall down, or he touches them, they don't fall down. Maybe he falls down. So Bermudez doesn't have the power to sting this guy, but what he does have is the ability to fluster him for the first couple of rounds. And then T. Edwards is a guy that's never really seen rounds deep into rounds 2. He's never seen round 3. Bermudez has been in split decision, close nail biters his last 3. He lives in round 3. He lives in the deep end. Whereas T. Edwards is 3 months removed from a head kick knockout, trying to like. Again, and I've been questioning some matchmaking on this card, like, why would T. Edwards be fighting Dennis Bermudez? Mm-hmm. Like, it makes no sense. We got a guy on a longer losing streak in the UFC than this other guy's had fights in the UFC. In fact, his 4 fights is more than half of the pro experience that T. Edwards has. Like, it's crazy to me. But it's prospect biting off more than he can chew versus veteran who's untrustworthy at this point, but probably got the goods still enough, I think, to squeak one out. So another underdog. Give me Dennis Bermudez.
Fair enough. We got Jeff Neal taking on Bilal Muhammad. Jeff Neal is 8,500 on DraftKings, minus 170 favorite. Bilal Muhammad is 7,700 and plus 150. Muhammad's coming off of 4 straight wins. His last loss being against Vicente Luque, and that fight is what he's going to have to avoid in this. Don't get into exchanges, especially early against Jeff Neal, because Jeff Neal does have some game-changing power. But we have seen that this guy, if you get him a little bit later into the fight, if you get him, Kevin Holland on the regional scene, you get him into round 3, and you keep that pace high enough that you're able to drain that tank a little bit, you can finish this guy off in the later rounds for sure. This is going to be a super interesting fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. It is a tough one though, because Muhammad is very good at slowing down the pace of the fight, fighting to the kind of pace that he wants to fight at, and that's what Jeff Neal is going to have to, try to avoid. Jeff Neal is going to try to come out there. He's going to try to land that big left straight down the pipe, and if he does, maybe he catches a knockout, but I wouldn't count out Bilal Muhammad in this spot.
Yeah, well, again, going back to matchmaking, this is good matchmaking. This is the tale of like two styles, both exciting but different in their own ways. Jeff Neal wants to put it on you quick and early, and he's got the goods. That knock over Frank Camacho, it was like, oh, you felt bad watching it actually. But it's like, this guy's got some power. Whereas Bilal Muhammad has no power, literally no stopping ability. But the pace he puts on you. So yeah, you got Neal who's going to try to take advantage of this slow starter versus Muhammad who's going to probably have a slow start, but then try to take advantage of Neal in the later rounds and put a pace on him. It's going to be a tremendous fight. I really don't know who's going to win. I don't know whose style is going to prevail because this is the tricky thing about MMA. You got Bilal Muhammad, cast iron chin. That fight with Joban, dropped 3 times, I think, but doesn't actually get knocked out, but dropped 3 times. Like he creates chaos in there, and like his chin's good, but you can hurt this guy. And then he goes in there against Vicente Luque, and it's like the same thing. Leaves himself open, gets hit, Luque knocks him out. Since then, his 4-fight winning streak, they're, for the most part, by decision. The Tim Means fight, probably is most impressive in that mix. Tim Means put it on him. That was a very, very, very close fight. His ring IQ prevailed for him that day because he just did the smaller little things, which is enough to get the judge's decision. But he's not going out there beating the brakes off these guys in the first round. That's a Jeff Neal thing. Whereas he's taking these guys into the 3rd round and dicing them out, which is not a Jeff Neal thing. It's a Bilal Muhammad thing. But MMA's fickle like that because on Saturday night, Bilal Muhammad could come out. He is a slow starter. We know that. And he could get kicked in the face in the first round and get knocked out. And people will say, man, I can't believe you guys are talking about that guy having a shot. He got killed. Or he could not get kicked in the face, put his pace on, get comfortable, and just wreck this guy over the course of 3, and he's going to look awesome. There's obviously 2 crazy scenarios, but they're just on both ends of the spectrum. It's who's going to be able to go out there and, implement their game. And I'm just going to strictly go out the base on the fact that I'm going to go dogger pass. I'm going to call it a dogger pass. Again, we got to get some dogs in this card. Bilal Muhammad is a dog that has come through for us in the past. The guy is tough, and people will say his last fight against Chance Rencountre, who we're about to talk about, wasn't the greatest.
He took it a little bit safe.
He did take it a little bit safe, and
But that's kind of just what he does.
I can't say
he's a point fighter. He's looking to just get that decision win. He doesn't.
I don't want to come off as being ignorant here. So someone just leave me a shot on Twitter or whatever the case. But like, was it Ramadan? Was it during Ramadan? Because he's done this during 2 of his camps, and other people are like, I don't know how he does it. And he has, like, he fought Joban, I think, during Ramadan. Yeah. Okay performances, but like, it ain't Ramadan now, motherfucker. So, like, this guy's going to be ready to go. Plus 150. Tough as nails. You could do worse. You could do worse than Bilal Muhammad.
Yep. And finally, we got Kyle Stewart taking on the aforementioned Chase Rencountre. Kyle Stewart, 8,700 DraftKings, minus 165 favorite. Rencountre is 7,500 and plus 145. What you take here? Yeah,
well, I'm not going to lie. This is the one that I still got to do a little more research on. But Kyle Stewart, LFA vet, won money off him actually in his last fight. Tough dude. His fight with James Nakashima is just a decision master, but he wins the decisions. MMA lab guy, tough guy, crafty guy, good kickboxing. I don't really hold much against him. The other fights, it's all decent level regional guys for the LFA organization. That is exactly what Chase Rencountre falls under the same category of. I didn't think this guy looked bad against Bilal Muhammad. That was probably one of the better performances I've seen from him, despite the fact that he lost fairly convincingly. But again, he took the fight on short notice, so Bilal Muhammad's got a different style he's prepared for, and I thought it was on Ramadan. I'll have to, again, look into that again, but I think there was variables in there that just led to Chance Rencountre surviving. Everybody survives against Bilal Muhammad. So the moral victory there of like, dude, you took a UFC debut on short notice against a top 20 guy and you went 15 minutes. That's impressive. And it is, don't get me wrong. But going against Bilal Muhammad, who's going to go 15 minutes anyways, a little less impressive. So that's why it's like he was supposed to fight Jared Gooden. Jared Gooden pulls off. Then he was supposed to fight Dwight Grant. Dwight Grant can't get his medicals, I don't think, in time. So now he's taking on Kyle Stewart, and Kyle Stewart's still the favorite over him. There's not a whole lot of respect being tossed over to Chase Rencountre, and that's because probably shouldn't be in the UFC. In the UFC, because he did them a favor, stepped up on short notice, but outside of that, probably shouldn't be here. And Kyle Stewart ain't that bad, just 1-1 his last 2 because he lost to Nakashima, but that's nothing to hold your head low on. So I think he rebounds here, or not rebounds. I think he makes it 2 in a row, wins in his debut. The $8,700, I am not interested in the slightest bit. But the minus 165, he opened at 2-1, and probably because he's on such short notice, and people are thinking Rencountre is not that bad, and he didn't look bad against Bilal Muhammad. It's coming down, but the money line comes down. The DraftKings pricing does not come down. So he's still priced like he's a 2-1 favorite at 8,700, but he is not a 2-1 favorite. I don't think he is. And for that reason, the price has stayed up on him, and it's a high price. So I would probably pass on that. A lot of unknowns on that fight. Don't let your whole roster come down to the first fight on the card 3 opponents later, right? Like,
yeah, when you don't really have a good feel for it. Like,
I'll do a little more tape
Rencountre,
study
I don't think is all that special whatsoever. And the funny thing is that I think Kyle Stewart's like 6 foot tall. Rencounter's like 6'2". He's super
tall, lanky,
long.
yeah.
But he's Kyle Stewart actually, according to Tapology, actually has the reach advantage here, 76 to 74. Because I was just like, well, maybe Rencountre seems like he would want to like throw jabs out, kind of keep somebody at bay. But I don't think he's going to be able to even do that.
I just want to
Rencountre may very well end up being like that trendy underdog just based on the odds and where these odds go on this fight. But I don't know if it's a really high scoring fight any way that you shake it. So it may just be a good one to kind of avoid in general.
Yeah, I hear you. The last point I'll throw out there, because there's not a whole lot of points more to make about the fight, is that they've both fought James Nakashima, both lost decisions. Nakashima is 10-0, all 10 of his wins by decision.
Why isn't he on the card?
Basically, because he's a decision machine. They don't want that. He's basically male version of Tisha Torres in a division that you don't need people like Tisha Torres. But Stewart fought for the title. He went 5 rounds. He went 5 rounds, 25 minutes. How many young guys coming in making their UFC debut are going to be able to dig back on the fact that they're in a world title fight against a tough guy? Rencountre fought him. It was just an average 3-round fight. He lost every single round. Is what it is. But I just feel like there's levels to this, and one guy's at a mid-level and one guy's at a lower mid-level, and that's enough to make me side with Kyle Stewart, especially for 165, but not on the 8,700. So that is about that, Paul.
Any final thoughts as we wrap up our first card of 2019?
No. I mean, let's start it off on a good note, obviously.
We had a heater last few 3-4 months. We were
so I'm really just hoping that it continues into the new year. Things have been obviously going really well, and so hopefully 2019 is a positive year. And as always, if you've made it this far into the show, you are considered not only an MMA hardcore, you are beyond MMA hardcore, but you're a bookie beatdown / Dogger Pass podcast hardcore. And thanks for sticking around for another year. So let's go kick some ass. Let's make some money, and Happy New Year, Paul.
Yeah. Happy New Year to you. Thank you to Cody Saftic breaking down the fights with me as always. And thank you to our producer, Mr. Chad Dow. Stock is rising on Mr. Chad Dow in 2019. So get on board. I think his Twitter account is like Chad. I'll retweet it. I'll retweet it from the Dogger Pass account. There's like too many H's. There's too many A's. Like I don't know how to spell it off the top of my head, and I forgot to say it. But give Chad a follow on Twitter.
Yeah,
as well. As well.
Yeah, I just want to say my last thing. You said you put me on the spot. Did I want to talk about things? I just want to get out of this way. The last 5 or 6 events, tremendous. That last card, 11 for 13. Got Cyborg wrong. I don't feel bad about it. A lot of people got Cyborg wrong. Generally, when someone shits in my apple pie, disastrously shits in my apple pie, and they have the stupidest game plan of all times, they're mad? Fucking dead to me. They're in my little black book of shit. Cyborg, I ain't mad. Because that was the most Cyborg thing of all times, dog. Her ex-husband, now ex-husband, Evangelista. That's
how he went out.
And he's my favorite fighter. Well, he's certainly in my top 3, but that guy has done more for my involvement getting into MMA and really pursuing this. He's dynamite. And that's exactly what he would do. They called him Cyborg because they are programmed to throw the game plan out the fucking window. That was the most Evangelista thing I've seen. And so I ain't mad, Holmes. That's what they do. That's who they are. It sucks. Props to Amanda Nunes. And she's one hell of a fighter. But on to the next, Paul. And let's have a big 2019.
On to the next one, indeed. So obviously for Cody and Chad, I am Paul saying goodbye and good luck.
Mayo experience! Experience!